The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is currently holding a press conference. In fact, he is holding a meeting with all the chief ministers of all the states in the country. The meeting is likely to determine whether India can extend its lockdown beyond the 3 weeks currently that is in place and that is scheduled to end in just 3 days from now on the 14th of April. Prime Minister has said that he is available 24/7 for all the states and that it is time for all Indians to stand shoulder to shoulder. Joining us on the phone line is WION's political editor, Kartikeya Sharma, for more details on the story. Kartikeya, obviously, the main agenda for this meeting is whether to extend the national lockdown beyond the 3 weeks scheduled period. It ends in 3 days, but we are learning that Punjab and Odisha have already extended lockdowns in their states till the end of this month.
Today's meeting is to create a consensus of whether a national lockdown is required or should states be allowed to have their own lockdown periods. One. Secondly, India has also gone for a different approach, which is rather than testing, which has been the South Korean way of dealing with it, India has taken the path of isolation and containment. And that is why you have these number of hotspots in India which have been barricaded. So we have actually implemented the so-called Bhilwara model of Rajasthan, which has been very successful in containing and tackling the spread of COVID-19. Now, what Prime Minister is doing today is he is taking every chief minister on board so to understand what do they think, because there is a cost to the lockdown, and the cost to the lockdown is in GDP. For example, in 21 days, how much of India's GDP would be shaved off? Will it be 2%? Now, a lot of economists are of the view that by the time we get over with the lockdown, at least 10% of India's GDP would be polished off, which means that thousands and thousands, lakhs and lakhs of people in the unorganized sector are going to get unemployed, which means that they will not have cash to kickstart the economy at the local level. If you don't have cash, which means that you don't have the demand at the local level. If you don't have the demand, then you don't have the production, which means that your economy shrinks, which is the vicious cycle. Now, in the time of pandemic, how do you kickstart a virtuous cycle? Now, these are ethical questions. Do you save lives, or do you kickstart the economic activities so that the basic economic grid of the nation survives? But these are the issues which are being deliberated today as to how to calibrate the imperatives of economic well-being of an individual, that he has enough money to eat and survive, with that of stopping the pandemic in its tracks so that we do not follow the same treacherous path of Italy, Spain, Germany, and United States of America, where thousands and thousands of people have died because the government did not have the vision nor implement the capacity they had to save the lives of common people. So in today's meeting, Prime Minister Modi is going to take a feedback from the chief ministers, decide how much lockdown is required, whether we need a phased exit. If lockdown is required, which are the areas in which phased exits can be implemented? Is it going to be a uniform lockdown, or is it going to be a sort of a segregated lockdown whereby certain areas remain locked and areas which have not seen a single case, at least the economy can kickstart there, but the boundaries of the districts can be sealed off? These are the issues which Prime Minister will have to deal with. But nonetheless, I would say he will have to make this announcement formally in address to the nation, because what we are witnessing, in the words of the Prime Minister in itself, is like a social emergency, that unless and until the civil society cooperates with the various arms of the government, whether it's the state level, center, or the administrative district level, we will not be able to defeat COVID-19.
Absolutely right. So what you're mentioning, Kartikeya, is that India has to find a good balance between saving lives and restricting the spread of this epidemic and possibly restarting some sort of economic activity somewhere down the road, because given the sheer number of daily wage workers in India and laborers who've migrated away from their homes and are now returning there, their sustenance depends on revival of some sort of economic activity. But the priority has to be to save lives at the moment, isn't it? Especially given that 10 states in India, 10 states have total number of 300 or more cases across India. It's not uniform across India. Certainly 10 states have more than 300 cases. Maharashtra has 1,500 cases. So certainly it cannot be a uniform removal of lockdown as we say across India, isn't it?
I think what the government will need to do is have to go district by district. There are districts where there are no cases, there are districts which have multiple cases, and there are localities in the districts which have become hotspots. For example, in the national capital region, Noida is one of the suburbs. It is part of the district of Gautam Budh Nagar in Uttar Pradesh. Now, there are a number of sectors which are hotspots. Similarly, there are districts in this country where not a single case has been registered. So the government will need to decide as to how they will like to integrate these districts with the economic activity. For starters, under the Gazette notification of the Government of India, people in rural areas have been asked, they've been permitted to go back to their fields, which means that they can part of the agricultural activity. But then what do you do with an agricultural activity if you cannot supply the food, if you cannot store it in the godown, if your cold storage chains are not functioning? These are the moot issues. But right now, the question in front of the Prime Minister, or the problem which stares the Prime Minister of our country, is should we have a lockdown which extends more than 21 days? Should India have a lockdown on the Wuhan model, which is roughly 70 plus days? Or should we have a lockdown in which we have parts of the time where people cannot move, but then there are days on which they are allowed to gather food material and come back, and then the lockdown resumes. This is the second model, but then the model has an issue because it's a long model, which means something which you can achieve in 49 days. In the Sato model, it will take more than 65 days. So these are the issues which the Prime Minister is grappling today. But I think by creating a consensus with the Chief Minister, because India is a federal structure, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been talking, has been consistent about cooperative federalism as part of his body politics. So I think in this context, I would see the meeting, but then these are the testing times.
Absolutely testing times, as all our viewers can see, Prime Minister Modi himself is wearing a mask in this meeting, as are majority of chief ministers who are in attendance. This is a virtual meeting and third such meeting that Prime Minister Modi is holding with not only chief ministers but leaders of opposition as well, and Prime Minister leading this battle against the coronavirus, certainly. Karthikeya, another challenge as far as Prime Minister Modi and all the chief ministers are concerned is that the scheduled lockdown is supposed to end in 3 days from now, but just yesterday, India witnessed its deadliest day as far as coronavirus is concerned. More than 2,000 cases have been reported just yesterday.
There are a couple of things which India witnessed, unintended consequences. One was the meeting which took place in Nizamuddin, in which a lot of people from the Tablighi Jamaat participated. That small mistake created a fillip. It turned out to be a big tragedy. Second problem was that the movement of the migrant labor. Most of it is unaccounted for. How many people have been infected on the way? It is something which India cannot understand right now for one simple reason, that the testing of those people have not taken place. They have melted down in their villages and mufassals and the semi-urban areas. So that is why we are seeing spikes. Now, my idea is that the government of India wants to contain the clusters if they have happened. Second, they want to identify spots where the spikes are taking place. Our strategy has to be different from South Korean model. South Korea has a population of 5 crores. India has a population of more than 120 crores. It is not possible to test 120 crore people. You cannot have 120 crore kits. It's possible to have 2 crore kits. So India has gone down a different policy which is economically implementable. One has to understand that things in which a dense country can afford and a demographically dense country cannot do. So these are the issues which the Prime Minister, for example, here's the point. The anti-malarial drug, HCQ, India has a stock of 3 crores, which is thrice the amount which is needed for the treatment in India. So we are very good when it comes to the anti-malarial, which is part of the cocktail of drugs treating frontline doctors in case they develop symptoms or they are given before they start the treatment of other patients so that their body develops some sort of a modicum of resistance. Not vaccines in form of way, but some sort of strength which enables you to fight the viral load. Now, coming back to this issue, Prime Minister in today's meeting will also take a sense of what state government wants to do in terms of opening up certain areas. Because India in a cooperative federalism will try to create certain methods, certain pathways through which the lockdown remains, the policy of isolation works, but the trickle of economic activity starts so that when the lockdown is over in a long period of time, because vaccine is still 12 months away or 14 months away, people have something in their pocket to spend. That's the biggest task. But as I say, economy is no god. People come before everything. And that's what lies at this debate, the ethics. Do you save the economy or do you save the people? My understanding is you save the people first, then comes the economy.
Absolutely. Karthike, you also mentioning that meeting that happened by Tablighi Jamaat meeting that was held in Delhi, and we can update our viewers that 30 areas across Delhi have been declared a containment zone, including Nizamuddin West, where the Tablighi Jamaat meeting was kept in place. So like Karthike was mentioning, government is identifying districts and government is identifying containment areas within those districts where in most of the effort has to be focused to contain the spread of the coronavirus. One final question to you, Karthike, before I let you go. We'll continue to get our viewers all the updates from this meeting. But by when do we expect this meeting to end, and what is the likely decision that is going to be taken? What are your sources telling you, at least?
More than 24 chief ministers. Every chief minister will have his say. There might be a recess in between. Prime Minister will have a say. There are other officials who are involved in the meeting. It's video conferencing. Even if people get 5 to 6 minutes, it's simply, it cannot wind up in 2 to 3 hours. It will take its time. And once that is over, Prime Minister is going to process things. A lot of leaks have happened over a period of time. It was not appreciated when Prime Minister spoke with the chief whips of the political parties. One of the regional political party of India actually taped the conversation and released it. So I think, this is something, my understanding is, would lead to Prime Minister not expressing everything or anything at this point of time. But we will come to know the mind of the Prime Minister when he decides to address the nation post this meeting. Whether it happens today, tomorrow or Monday is anyone's guess. But I think the formality will be maintained. Everyone would be informed at one go in order to ensure that there is no panic on the street.
Right. Karthike, thank you so much for joining us. We're just getting an update from inside the meeting that Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has suggested to the Prime Minister to extend the lockdown for another 15 days. That's what sources are telling us. We'll get the confirmed update for our viewers. All the updates from the Prime Minister's meeting, virtual meeting with the Chief Ministers, we will get you right here on WION. Stay with us.